You can always put things off. There's always a reason why you don't do something. So, 14 years ago, I had cancer. And up to that point, you think, I can't do it next week because I've got a list of jobs to do and blah, 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 blah. And then something comes along like that and your list disappears because, trust me, you don't care about that list anymore. And then I lost a dear friend to a sudden illness, and it was so fast, and it was another wake-up call. And like, why are we waiting to do this? Why do we not just do it when we can? There will always be a reason why we don't do something, and it'll always be the thing that you regret that you don't do.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. Morning, Colleen. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. After a panic with the timings.
I'm so sorry. I think I forgot to mention that obviously the time that we're doing this is, based in South African time. But thankfully, you're in France and you're not that far off from me. You're about an hour behind.
Yeah, and it was our fault. We did know that. We just worked it out wrongly. You went an hour the wrong way.
That's all right. But otherwise, are you doing great? Are you feeling ready? Are you nervous at all? You shouldn't be nervous. I mean,
no, looking forward to it. Hope that I answer everyone's questions and that it's useful. So.
Of course, it always will be. And, obviously the purpose of these webinars that, we're having is really just so that we can educate people on overlanding, what they can expect. Because, you think, oh my gosh, I'm jumping on a truck with a bunch of foreigners. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's going to happen. And this is obviously just to help them manage their expectations, but also to inspire anybody who hasn't thought about a journey like this.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Good. There were a few people on the fence. So I have to decide, my glasses are reflecting the light that's coming in or being able to read. But I may not read your notes. So
That's okay. You can just follow along with me and then we should be fine. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. I've got two really fun facts about you, that you used to be in a Motown band, you're a singer, and you were a teacher as well.
Yeah, I taught adults. I taught computing, City and Guilds. It was in England. That's a long time ago. When I started working in IT, there was no internet.
That's a good point.
And my computers that I worked on literally had the tapes that used to go in every day and change the tapes and find the end of the file and things like that. So
I'm definitely completely lost because I have no idea what that was like.
So yeah, for a while I taught at college adults IT, so that they could get an IT qualification. That was a long time ago, before children.
More children. And then the Motown singing, do you still do that, or is that just?
No, I retired last year because we travel so much, it's just impractical. So 14 years ago, I had cancer in my throat. I've sung all my life, and the idea of potentially losing my speaking voice, let alone my singing voice, was music had been part of my life. The idea that I could lose that was terrifying. And I was explaining this to my hairdresser, who said, oh, my husband's looking for a singer in his band. I was like, yeah, I'm just about to go off and have cancer treatment, and that's not going to be me. And I used to sing in theatre, musical comedy, not in a band, so very different. And she's like, no, you'll be great, I'll tell him. And that was it. So 14 years I was singing in a band, traveling across France, Spain, and England, singing. With a 7-year residency on a cruise ship as well in Bordeaux, which was cool. So.
Wow. Okay, so obviously, traveling has been it's been part of your career, has been part of your life. It has been, basically everything that you are, sort of. It's really influenced you to step out of your comfort zone and experience things that are different. Not everybody thinks that they're gonna, survive throat cancer and then still go on to, be a performer, and then, do the Camino de Santiago and travel the world. Like, that must be really inspiring. I mean, when I'm big, I want to be like you.
Well, the travel thing came from being when I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, there is a program in the UK in black and white, so that's how long ago it was, and it was called Wicker's World. And I used to watch Wicker's World and just love it. And he'd go to these far-flung corners of the world. And I don't know how old I was, but it would have been in the 1960s, very early 1970s. And I just knew that one day I had to go to those places. And actually Table Mountain behind you was one of the things on my list that I had to visit. And so I have a list, and I've had a list since I was a child, and I knew that there was something in me that needed to travel. And if you've ever read The Alchemist book.
Yes, yeah.
That is me. I am him. I knew I had to go follow. He had to go to Egypt, but I had to travel. That is just something that I was born with, I think. The Camino happened because of the cancer. It was a way of saying, yeah, I'm alive. I can do this. I'm going to challenge myself to something. So, and that, I think, we've always traveled, but traveled safely, package holidays, off with the kids. We used to home swap, go different places around the world, but never anything too challenging. And walking the Camino made me realize I could do a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And then, let's say, a personal sort of tragedy made us think we have to do this now because we're not getting any younger.
Yeah.
We need to. And once we'd started, we're never gonna be able to go back. That is us now. We can't imagine ever not wanting to find the next horizon, literally.
That's amazing. I mean, like you said, sometimes it takes a tragedy. Sometimes it takes, your self-realization that you're not where you want to be. And it's time to start living,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And travel doesn't have to cost the earth, we don't. People have said to us, oh, you must have so much money, but we don't. We travel cheaply. We use buses. We walk. We stay in hospitals, in order to get somewhere. We don't buy other things, or we just find the most inconvenient flight because it's cheaper. So there's always ways. And even the trip that we did in Africa, initially we knew we wanted to come, but we were looking at some of the costs of some of the safaris thinking, oh,
I know
stretch our budget. And then we found the one that we did and we're like, oh, that's interesting.
I think that's one of the best things about overlanding. I mean, you can always, go and book a private safari and the Kruger, etc. It's going to cost you a lot, probably, the luxury lodges, things like that, because that's the culture in those spaces. But overlanding is so raw and authentic, and it gives you a chance to really see the things that you're not going to see when you're going to, your 5-star luxury lodges and breaking the bank. And this way you get to see so much in a really good span of time, because you did the Cape Town to Victoria Falls tour.
Yeah, we did. And for all of those reasons, don't get me wrong, it's very nice to have a little bit of luxury here and there. And sometimes you just think, I just want a soft bed and I want a nice room and but other times you really don't care. You have a bed just to go to sleep. It's what you do outside of that matters.
And you're sleeping for so little bit hours. It's probably about minimum 6 hours. You're getting about 6 hours of sleep during that time. The rest of the time you're out and about.
Because they get you up at 6 o'clock in the morning and hold you. So
Speaking of overlanding, I just have, two of our consultants who are also in the webinar. They just sent us a quick chat. Ingrid says, hello, Colleen. Ingrid here. And then Celia, one of our consultants, she loves your blogs. She reads them all of the time. And she sends, most of our consultants actually send it to our clients. So she wanted to say, Celia here, just wanted to say thank you for your incredible blogs. Really enjoy reading it and sharing it with my travelers.
Oh, that's cool. I still have about 5 or 6 to write. I had to stop writing them because I had to write about the Camino posts because we needed them ready before the Camino season started. But there are some more. I haven't written about the Okavango Delta. I haven't written about the dunes and Swakopmund and so many things. So yeah, there will be more.
That's great. Before you actually write about them, could you share some of your favorite highlights, from the tour? I know it's always difficult when I ask people this question.
It's really difficult because we didn't know what to expect. And a few years ago, we went to Yellowstone, and when we arrived, we had a list. Oh, we want to see a buffalo. We want to see XYZ, and we kept a little score sheet. And then we saw so many that we gave up on the score sheet. And it was the same when we got to Chobe on the first trip. Had a little school. I'd like to see a giraffe. I'd like to see a zebra. I really hope we see an elephant. And then we crested a hill going into Chobe. It was like arriving at the nesting grounds in the dinosaur movie. Yeah. And there are just animals everywhere. And it's like, oh my God, this is not real. So that was a highlight. The first time that you go off on a safari, and the sun was setting, and it was a bright red African sun, and it was just amazing. So that was our intro. And then, after that, we had the lioness hunt where the 5 lionesses were hunting together. That was amazing. 3 cheetahs working together. That was amazing. Every day you thought, well, it can't get any better than that. And it didn't get better than that. It just got different. So Namibia was so different than Chobe, and the Okavango with the wetlands and the birds and being chased by a hippo. That was just...
Did you get chased by a hippo?
We were in the little boat, not the Macola boat, but the little engined boat.
Yes.
And we must have woken him up, and he's really angry. So he... And hippos kill more people than any other animal. So we were like, whoa.
I mean, obviously there's lots of misconceptions really about traveling to Africa. What are some of the wildest things that people told you about coming to Africa? And then you were like, I mean, it's really not like that.
Yeah, there were 2 things that, people said you're going to get kidnapped. All this travel, it's like, really? Why? For a start.
What would they want with me?
I know. Do you know, for us, the biggest surprise was the amazing supermarkets in the middle of nowhere in a little tiny town. And they had amazing supermarkets. And Jerry was the happiest man because every day they'd stop at a supermarket for lunch. And there was always a hot counter selling fresh pies.
Yes. We love pies in Africa. I mean, you go to the garages, you go to the little shops, there's a pie somewhere.
Fried Kentucky Fried Chicken brand that one of our cooks had to get a big box every day because he is obviously addicted to them. But yeah, the supermarkets were the biggest surprise. I think, I don't know, I think people thought that we'd either be eaten or killed by snakes or, and they, the snakes and the scorpions are there. That's the real danger. It is Africa. But, the campsites were really, really first class. Ingrid will back up that about 2 days before we left home, I messaged her and said, if we wanted to upgrade to accommodation rather than the tent, how hard would it be? Because we were really nervous, but we loved our tent in the end. It's like our little home on wheels.
And you do have to keep your tent, you have to remember your number for your tent, and then you take that one out of the truck every day anyway. So it does become your little mobile home at the end of the day.
Outdoors, we'd move with it and find our tent, get in there.
I mean, you've described yourself as somewhat of a princess, like in your blog, you've just described yourself as somewhat as a princess. What made you choose, the fully serviced camping over an actual accommodated tour in your whole thought process? What made you choose that?
There were a few things about that tour that appealed to us. The service camping, yes. We have done camping trips where we've had to put the tent up and we've slept on the floor on mattresses. And as I mentioned to you, when you get to a certain age, sleeping on the floor, getting up every morning is a bit of a performance. It's not something you'd ever share. Getting up and down from the floor is not easy. And we felt as though that we would do that if that was the only choice. But I did see in one of the pictures on this tour that there were camp beds. And so
yes,
that was a major draw. And also, we remember camping when our kids were young, and every time we put a tent up, there'd be a fight, there'd be an argument about it. So we just thought, surely we can't have to put a tent up every day.
Yeah.
And on the service tours, the tents are put up for you. So you get your bed and you put it in there and you make your bed, but the tents are there when you arrive, and that was a big bonus for us. It wasn't the deciding factor, because if we found a great tour, that wouldn't stop us. But the over 40s thing, I think, more than anything. And we've traveled extensively and met some amazing young people, and you get a hugely fresh perspective from different people that you meet. But as far as activity goes, if we were to go on holiday with our kids who would be in that age group, they would want to be doing different things than we would be doing. And we felt that the over 40s would definitely be more our tribe, especially on this kind of trip. And that was the thing, I think, that really appealed to us the most. It wouldn't be sandboarding down the dunes, and we wouldn't be expected to go zip lining down the canyon or anything.
I guess that's also a very good point that you're raising. A lot of the time on overland tours, as much as the consultants try to couple you with, people who are within a similar age range to you, etc., sometimes it's not always the case, and it's something that's almost beyond your control. And, being on a tour that was, 40s and over, how did you find the actual group dynamic? Are you still friends with some of the people that were on tour with you?
Yeah, it was a great group. I mean, there were two kind of camps within the group, because 6 of the group were Italian and they all knew each other. So they'd come together. So they were a unit, and obviously the language made it harder. But we were a mixed group. The Australians, New Zealand, Danish, have I forgotten anyone? But everybody got on. There was, you naturally liked some people more than others, and we've become friends with others. And that's one of the things with the overland trip that is sad, is that some of the group left us in Namibia, including our best friends that we'd made. So it's like we were a big hug in Namibia, bye. But yeah, it was a nice group. It was like-minded people, I guess, who were there, happy to camp, happy to pitch in. I guess that's not always the case, but it's such a short space of time that you can live with that.
Yeah, that's true. And obviously you've made these friends, you've made these connections, and then there's a point, obviously, where the tour eventually has to come to an end. What is it like stepping off on that last day of the tour for you?
It's awful. When we were in Victoria Falls, we got there a few days before and did some amazing things at Victoria Falls. And on the second or third day, we saw our bus drive past, and we were like, oh my God, that's our bus. And the first morning, sort of gingerly stepping into it, and by the end, so 3 weeks later, it's your home. And so we were at Cape Point, and we'd been in to see the penguins and have the photo by the sign. And there was our bus sort of parked on the road, and climbing back on was really sad, because you knew that you'd literally reached the end of the continent at the end of the tour. And that it was our last sort of sad drive back to Cape Town, and that would be it. It was like, yay, never to see people again, really.
Yeah. And you also stayed in Cape Town for a bit. Was it before your tour or after your tour?
No, it was after, because we started in Victoria and went down.
Yes. Okay. And
so
what was that like?
Sorry?
What was that like, staying in Cape Town for a week?
It was great. I would definitely recommend it. I'd recommend adding time at the beginning and the end. You can definitely feel 2 days in Victoria. There's lots to do and see. We added 5 days in Cape Town, because the tour gives you two or 1.5 days in Cape Town anyway. So, and we didn't see all the things that we wanted to see. So, and we were afraid. We had read so much about Cape Town that, you know, we were thinking, oh, you know, will we be able to do anything, or will we be apprehensive or nervous? But certainly around the V&A, it's just beautiful. It's so easy to wander. Table Mountain, we went shark diving.
I mean, that sounds like you were challenging, you know, finding your inner younger person in there with your shark cage diving. Did it feel like you were quite young at that point, or did you still feel like you're over 40?
Yeah, I felt like we were stupid.
But, that's okay. But what was that experience like? I don't know if I would ever be able to, you know, go shark cage diving. I think it would scare me too much.
Oh, you really could. It's strapped to the side of the boat. So you're stood on the cage and you just duck your head down. You're not going anywhere.
Okay. So,
but you could also go on the boat. Jerry never wanted to go in the cage, and so he just sat on the top level of the boat, quite a small boat, and he had a better view of everything from there, because he could see them coming in. So he's like the spotter as well.
Who's more adventurous, you or Jerry?
Me. But he's braver. So I get ourselves into all kinds of, let's do that. And then at the very last moment, I'm too terrified and he has to coax me on.
But I think that's the perfect dynamic. It's exactly what you need.
Yes. Yeah. And then he's like, what am I doing? What do you get me into? Like a 2-hour camel ride across the desert in Jordan. And we've done some crazy things. And he's like, why am I doing this?
Well, I think you guys should probably, you know, renew your vows one day and in there slot in a line, in sickness, in health, and all adventures, even if I'm too chicken to do it.
Do you know, we're going to do that now. We're going to have that added, an amendment.
Please invite me too. I'd love to be a fly on the wall.
But I do these things and then he wants to do it again. So now, like I say, we want to come back to Africa. We can't just do what we did. It's such an incredible experience that we have to come back. So
yes, you actually want to come back in 2026 to do gorilla trekking, right? Like an East Africa type of thing.
And go upwards from Victoria.
Is there anything specific other than, you know, the gorillas that attracts you to those regions, and any regions that you've chosen to travel to?
I think the Serengeti. Everybody has heard, you know, Toto, the song. It's part of that. Masai Mara with the Kenya. I like to go to Zanzibar. So those places. I mean, we have been looking at the options to go from Livingstone up through Malawi, but I don't know that I know that much about Malawi. I just know that we met some people who had come down all the way who said, oh, Malawi was their favorite. So it's too much choice. It's such a vast continent. How do you choose?
Yeah.
Ultimately, you want to see wildlife, I guess. Ultimately, that's, or nature in the raw. Because when we were in places like Fish River Canyon, there was no wildlife. But wow, it's just such an incredible place that we never heard of. So.
Yeah. and it's just so vast and like it looks like it goes on forever.
Never
I'm
ends.
sure that's also how you felt, along the dunes. Did you actually walk up the dunes? Did you make it?
No, we didn't. Well, we were in the car, and then we stopped for a champagne lunch, which was very surreal in the middle of this skeleton coast. And then they said, right, we're off driving the dunes. So
yes.
We went in the 4x4s and felt like we were on an episode of Top Gear. So.
Channeling your inner Jeremy Clarkson. I love it. But overall, it seems like, obviously the tour that you did, you said that it wasn't something that you got, it's the first of your kind, basically, the first type of tour that you've done where, it's multi-destinational travel on a purpose-led truck. What was that like, and how did it change your perspective of travel going forward?
Well, for a start, I think we chose that tour because primarily the budget fitted with us. And we're like, okay, well, if we want to go to Africa and we want to see these things, this is the way we can afford it. But now we're looking at other overland trips because we loved that experience so much. And we're not package tour kind of people. And I don't think we ever will be, but an adventure package where you get to see and go to places that on our own we wouldn't go. We had some friends who'd done kind of what we did, but independently. They got a 4x4 and traveled through Namibia and Chobe. But I don't think that they had the experiences that we had because they didn't necessarily know about them. So they were there longer, but didn't see and do as much in their time. And so we would definitely look at a curated trip on places that are difficult to reach or dangerous, and dangerous because of the animals. We can't, when we were in Spitzkop and we went to see the Bushman caves, we were walking along and the guide said, mind your foot, because there was a puff adder. But we had to get up quite close and she was going there. And we were like, where? Even when we knew it was there, we couldn't see it because it was camouflaged in the sand. Yeah. So your guides keep you safe, like with the hippo, or they're there to make sure that you can do these crazy things that you would never dream of doing safely. And we would not have had those experiences if we'd gone alone. And so when we look at some other trips, an example in Vietnam, we did the Hajiang Loop, but we didn't do it on a bike because we're not motorbikers. But just taking part in a little small tour means that you have that expertise and you can do things that maybe you don't have the confidence to do alone.
Okay, I get that. And I mean, I'd really like to touch on how you've mentioned, the help that your guide gave you in, noticing the puff adder for you, or helping you, because also you're celiac, so your guide and driver were obviously assisting when it came to food and stuff like that. Can you touch on the importance that it means to have someone like that on tour with you?
I think the most important thing that the guides did was just educate us or spot things that we would never have seen. So when we were in the Kalahari, a perfect example, as driver came off the road, we were able to go through Kakagadi Park in the bus, which is great because you're so much higher than the cars.
Such a great view.
And he came off the road. It's like there's a black giraffe, I think, or it's certainly a giraffe. And we're all in the bus. I mean, a giraffe is not small. We could not see until actually the giraffe moved away from the tree, but the driver spotted it, and so we were able to see it is a different giraffe from the ones that we'd already seen. We would not have seen those things without them, and I guess they just grow up being able to spot things that we just never would. And also they share stories and fables and history of places that you just would not know or get if you went alone. And I kind of relate it a little bit to, I guide people on the Camino and I research the history and I look for little corners that most people miss. And I guess it's the same thing, that you have somebody who's an expert in their field there telling you what you need to observe, and it's just amazing. And the celiac thing, I was concerned. I thought, well, I'll just eat rice. Chicken and rice is my standby across the world. I can always find chicken and rice. But they were amazing. Our chef every day found me gluten-free pasta, bread, crackers, and I never went without anything. There were vegetarians as well, who were also super catered for. The food actually was excellent. There was always plenty left over. There was always a couple of courses. Always hot chocolate just before we went to bed, which was like
hot chocolate is always a winner. You can't go wrong.
Yeah, and they had alternative milks there for people. I mean, it was really well catered for. And then during the day, you could stop off in your supermarket and get all sorts of treats or beer or wine, pies.
Pies. Well, obviously, it's great that they obviously cater for you. And this is like what they do. They cater for everybody on tour, whether it's through dietary requirements, whether it's through language, whether you need to stop at different stops because you need to pee all of the time. They honestly make a plan for you. And I think that that's the best part. And speaking of the stops, how did you find, obviously you did a tour that's for over 40s, you're dealing with people who are obviously a little bit elder, but I'm sure just as fit. How did you actually find the pace and the different activities of the actual tour?
Oh, they were, there was never anything that felt out of bounds. I mean, in Namibia, one of the things I really wanted to do was to go to Deadvlei.
Yes.
But myself and actually my New Zealand buddy, we were both sick that day. We'd picked up something. We were both really sick. And there was a hike there if you wanted. Or if you didn't want to do the hike over the dunes, which is quite tough, you could take a Jeep. There was a Jeep taxi to take you there. And Jerry had spoken to the guide the night before and said, oh, she's not going to be up to it. She's on the Jeep. And I was like, whoa. I've come halfway around the world. I am definitely going to walk over those dunes.
Wow.
So myself and my other sick buddy, we both made it to Deadvlei, and we sort of crested the hill, and we both said, yeah, we've seen it now. Let's just go back. So we didn't actually walk down to the trees themselves.
Yeah.
But we at least managed to do it. But if you didn't want to do that dune hike, you could take there was always an option. You didn't have to do things if you didn't want to.
Yeah. Which obviously made it a lot more comfortable for each person. Like, as much as this is something that, some people, they may be stepping out of their comfort zone. For some people, it may be, something they've done all of their lives, stepping out of their comfort zone. But to have that security blanket that there is an option if you're really not up for it, that becomes very helpful and really helps you enjoy the tour.
Yeah, and you're not alone if you were to stay behind. So after the hike, myself and my friend, we slept. And everybody else went off in the bus to a canyon. But we weren't alone in the camp. The cook and the other guy there, so there are 3 staff on our bus, they were there. So if you wanted to stay behind, you can. You're not alone. If you don't want to go on one of the safaris, I don't know why you wouldn't. But if you didn't want to do something, it's totally your choice about how you spend your time. There was nothing too strenuous. In fact, for us, most probably it could have been more, but there were 70-year-olds on our tour. But I have to say, the 70-year-olds were the ones that did the zip lining over Victoria Falls Canyon, from the Lookout Cafe.
Wow. When I grow big, I want to be like all of these people. And obviously, you're traveling in a truck. Some of your days are long, some of them are shorter on the travels, things like that. Did you find the truck comfortable, or at any point was it just, not? Because I know Jerry has a bad back. So did it work for you guys?
We were worried about that because some of those trips are like 10 hours long. You're traveling huge distances. So we were like, okay, well, we'll suck it up. It'll be fine when we're there. But the reality is that the whole time that you were on the bus, you're seeing something. And some of it may be similar, but generally it's not. It's constantly changing. We went from Chobe to Okavango with all the water, and then into Namibia, and then obviously sort of coming into South Africa, it's very different again. Every day was introducing something new that you hadn't seen before. So you looked out the window, and sometimes you might have dozed, sorted through my photos, made some notes for my blog, but generally you're looking out the window, just losing yourself in, different things happen while you're like, kids will run alongside the bus waving at you, or we saw some mountain zebra and a mum and baby trying to run away from the bus but not knowing how to, so just running alongside you, or elephants will cross the road, or just there's always something. And also you sometimes get up at 5:30 in the morning, so you'll just doze for a bit and
take a nap. A good nap always works, but I find like if you nap too much in the truck, you kind of miss the scenery, and you see one spot, you are in one place, and then the next moment you're in a completely different place. You're like, whoa, what did I miss?
Exactly. Blink and you miss it. And it's the trucks are trucks, they're overland trucks. They are not designed for comfort.
They're designed to get you from point A to point B.
And it's dusty, but they have these huge windows, and so we had a huge window that you can open if you're hot, or if anybody's thinking of doing it, take a thin scarf, because when the sun's coming through, it's really hot through the windows, so you might want to block that off. But it never felt like it was too much. It felt like home. I mean, we were really sad when we climbed in for the last time. So don't expect it to be like a coach. It's certainly not luxury travel, but at the same time, it was never too much. It just right. It was just right. I mean, you'll grow to love that truck and its leather seats. There's even a USB charger for your phone on.
That's the best part. That was my favorite thing about being in the truck, is that right there's a port for you to charge your phone. That was the best thing for me. I'm like, I don't have to get up to go and find a plug.
Everybody had their own.
Exactly. You have your own charging port, you have your own little space, and you can sort of like, if you need a break to detach from the rest of the group, like if you're socially anxious, for example, and you need some time to yourself, you can just waddle away into a corner of the truck, grab your book, or take a nap. That's the best thing. And nobody imposes on that.
No, our group rotated the front seats, but there was a lady who suffered from travel sickness, and so actually we tried the front seat and I didn't like it as much, because you've got nothing in front of you for the bumps to hold on to. So we said she could just sit in the front the whole time, because she just suffered from the travel sickness. And actually we always ended up going back to our same little seat. It was, we just got used to it. It was our space.
Good.
Our things were in the
Yeah. You mentioned, having a little scarf to put over, the window, when it gets too hot and the sun is on your face, because obviously it's not like you can really prevent that. Are there any other things, any, packing tips that you have for people that they just need to carry when they go on an overland tour? I'm guilty of being a complete overpacker, number one. So any tips for that?
Yeah, don't overpack, because you've got to move your bag around up and down from the truck and into your tent, and there is just no point to take it. We had laundry done in a few places, or there are sinks in the campsite where you can wash things out. I had one of those little sea to summit washing lines that they fold down to about this size, and you can string them up between the tents, and lots of people, a lot of people were doing that, stringing up and hanging a few clothes each day between the tents to dry them. don't bother, if you're coming through South Africa, don't bother bringing expensive jungle formula mozzie spray in your hand luggage, because they'll take it away from you. So we were going around Victoria trying to find jungle formula mozzie spray, but of course we got it in Victoria, so that was fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was pointless. I think lightweight layers. If you were going, we went May, June, it was freezing cold, and so hot during the day. It's at night it gets cold. So there was a shop that they took us to called Pets, where we all went and bought cheap puffer coats and woolen hats and gloves, which actually was cool because it was just a few euros, but we donated them at the end, so because we didn't need to take them home.
Yeah.
If going in winter and sort of in a tent, I'd recommend some very lightweight thermals that you can put on at night. But during the day, it's hot and clear and beautiful weather. So.
Did you find that difficult navigating the weather situation? Because like during the day it's so hot, and then in the evenings the temperature drops drastically. Did you find that difficult to manage?
I found it difficult, not when we were there and we'd understood, but it was difficult before we left, because everything was saying it's cold at night, but you read the temperature charts and they're like 21 degrees and you're like, well, that's not cold. So I bought initially heavier trousers, long sleeve heavy t-shirts, and we were going to take puffer jackets. And we were reading these weather charts and checking the weather, thinking, well, it's not cold at all. It's really hot. So then we bought lightweight cargo pants and t-shirts and vests. So we came there and we didn't have enough cold weather stuff. Fortunately, we had brought some lightweight thermals, which were perfect for nighttime. But we did need to buy hat, gloves, and a coat.
You also mentioned that you guys stopped at a Pep and you bought a pillow.
Pillow, yeah, everybody did. Life was perfect then.
Made sleeping a lot easier.
Yeah, because they give you a little camp pillow, you know. But once we'd got the Pep pillow, lovely, soft, bought a little pillowcase. It's like €1 or something crazy, and you know, it's perfect for the rest of the trip. Made such a difference, and everybody had their own.
Made it feel like you were sleeping in a bed, I guess.
Yeah, it was very comfortable.
That's good. That's good. I guess that's also the point of having, you know, you want to camp, of course, and you want to experience it authentically, but you have to find ways to make yourself comfortable in those spaces. Like on our first night on our tour, it was obviously Christmas Day when I was traveling. So they had like these little tea light candles, the ones with the battery in them. And then I sneakily snuck one from the table because I didn't carry a light with me. And I kept that little light with me in my tent wherever we went, because then you need something in the dark. I mean, there's literally no light pollution in most of the campsites.
No.
Which makes stargazing amazing, but also you're still going to need to see inside your tent. So it becomes very difficult.
Absolutely need a head torch and get one that's got quite a strong lumen, but also you can sit at night and see all the little eyes of the jackals or what have you around. And in some cases, when you're in the national park, you don't even want to know whose eyes they belong to.
Did that ever like scare you? Like, I know probably you didn't go out in the middle of the night to go and pee, of course. But did
it's amazing how good your bladder can be when you're in a tent in the jungle.
Exactly. How good is your eyesight, you know? But did it ever, you know, worry you to a point where you were like, I don't think that I could do this, sleeping, you know, in the national park with animals all around me in a tent?
I think initially you feel that. So when we arrived at Victoria to meet our crew, there were other people leaving. They'd finished their tour. So you had an hour that you could sort of sit and chat with people. And so what about the bathrooms? How do you manage that? And actually it was just like being on a campsite. And on ours, apart from Spitzkoff and another place, you were in a gated camp. Anyway, you were outside on the edge of the national park. And the campsites were really excellent, you know, the hot water and great showers, and some of them had swimming pools, although it's too cold and it wasn't swimming pool season. But the campsites were, even when we were wild camping at Spitzkoff and there was no campsite as such, there were bush toilets, and I have to say they were the nicest bush toilets I have ever encountered. So sort of thinking, okay, here we go, brace yourself for this. And they were like sparkly, brand new, wonderful bush toilets. So I think the thing that worried us most if we had to go out in the dark was the idea that there might be snakes or scorpions, that kind of thing. And that's where you needed the head torch, just to keep an eye on the ground for where you were placing your foot. But we never saw anything, and you get kind of blasé about it in the end. It doesn't become an issue because you feel so comfortable in your surroundings.
And obviously, you know, you're briefed about it before you check into your tent. Basically, they tell you what to look out for, what's in the area, what to expect, what sounds you're probably going to hear for that night. And I guess it's just the thrill of adventure at the end of the day. That's what it is. And speaking of adventure, you know, being somebody who's a senior, I'm sure you encounter a couple of challenges when it comes to travel insurance, for example. How do you overcome that and deal with those?
I think we wrote a post actually about it because Jerry did so much research. I think if you're only going away for, say, a month, if you want to do it the tour that we did, then most insurance companies won't have a big problem with that. But we tend to go away for 3, 4, 5 months at a time. And trying, you know, before we were 60, getting insurance was no problem. You're honest about your health situation. You're honest about where you're going, whether there's altitude, any risk. It's the kind of things that you're doing. And your insurance company will give you a quote. And that's never been an issue for us. But once we hit 60, there were way more conditions as to what we can do. And you can get insurance, but it's maybe €1,000 more to have that insurance. So it makes a huge difference on your budget. And I've had a lot of people say to me on their trips, but we've just got our credit card insurance. And that's fine if you're just going down for a week in San Sebastian or somewhere, you know, a week in Paris or something. But even then it's not, because they may not repatriate you. They may not cover certain things or certain risks. So you really need to, once you get to a certain age, check the small print. And if in any doubt, just contact the insurance company, because that's been a major issue and continues to be a major issue for us. It's not a problem on this tour, but if you go over a certain elevation, I don't know if people ever wanted to do Kilimanjaro, that might let them with a problem.
Yeah. Well, it's good points that you're raising. And, you know, for people to, you know, the best point of information would be for them to chat to their travel insurance company and see what options they have. But it sort of gives you almost like a nip in the butt to say, start doing it now before you get to that age where your insurance is not going to cover you. So start taking those trips now. Any advice on that? Any more inspiration that you could offer?
That, you know, you can always put things off. There's always a reason why you don't do something. So, you know, 14 years ago I had cancer, and up to that point you think, I can't do it next week because I've got a list of jobs to do and blah 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 blah, and then something comes along like that and your list disappears because, trust me, you don't care about that list anymore. And then I lost a dear friend to a sudden illness, and it was so fast, and it was another wake-up call. And like, why are we waiting to do this? Why do we not just do it when we can? There will always be a reason why we don't do something, and it'll always be the thing that you regret that you don't do.
Yeah.
Now, it's cliche, but it is absolutely true.
That's the truth. They always say, you know, you only regret the things that you didn't do. And it's very, very true. Whether you start when you're in your early 20s or whether you start traveling in your 40s, at least you're getting out there, stepping out of your comfort zone, living a different life, you know, and setting that example for, if you are somebody who has kids, setting that example for your kids that life is short at the end of the day.
Our kids would have loved our tour.
Mm-hmm.
They would have loved it. You know, we wouldn't have dreamt of taking them on something like that. But I'd imagine the tour we did as a family would be incredible.
Has your love for travel filtered down to your children as well?
The youngest, no, hates it, gets travel sick, doesn't, you know, he'd be sick on a pedalo, so he doesn't like traveling at all. Our middle son, he went traveling for well over a year, has traveled through South America and Asia, and they go whenever they can, although they're getting married this year and getting a home, so I guess that will change for them. And our oldest, she's a baby now, but they travel, they like cities, so they travel. She's a real foodie, so she goes off in hunt of different foods and major cities, which is very different from the way we travel. But yeah, so in their different ways. But the youngest one, no, never wants to travel.
You never know. It might happen the same way that it happened to you. You know, he might have a life-altering experience where he's like, it's time for me to get on the road. It's time for me to experience something totally different. And with your upcoming plans, or just, I know you've mentioned you want to stay out of the house for the next 6 months and travel. Have you decided where you're going? What the plans are?
Oh, well, we can't, because we were traveling for 2 years. We had to come back and do some TLC on the house, which is happening now. And then our son is getting married. So we're going to South America in October. I'm walking 2 Caminos this year, so that's a bonus. But we're going to South America in October for a few months, and Antarctica. And then we're going to go back to Asia for maybe 4 months, January to April. And then, let's say, we quite fancy going up to East Africa in June. And then at the end of that year is China, Nepal, Tibet, and yeah. And then we kind of have a rough idea after that, but it's next year for now. That's enough.
That's a good plan to have. I mean, imagine filling your diary with places to see instead of things to do. I think that is one way that you should be living. Everybody should live like that.
Ah, that is such a true thing. It is about what you see and the experiences that you have and the food that you taste and the people that you meet. I mean, we sat in a hut in the middle of the Namibian desert with 2 beautiful women and their babies, and it was the I can't remember the name of the tribe, but they were so beautiful.
Himba tribe.
Yeah, perfect English for a start. How is that possible? We know nothing about them, and they explained to us how they make food and live in such a harsh environment, and they were so beautiful. I have a picture of one of those ladies. She's absolutely stunning. So who thought I would be doing something like that? That's just amazing.
And I think that also it's a testament to your love for culture and history of different places, because you've mentioned that you want to go to Egypt and Morocco, etc., as well as Ethiopia. You've got a friend in Ethiopia at the moment. And when I asked you why you want to visit those places, you said it's more about the culture and the history. Has there been, like, on your tour, you know, obviously the Himba tribe was very impactful, but is there any other cultures and histories that you managed to see while you were on your tour, or just in your travels in general, that has profoundly impacted you?
Well, I think the people that we meet when we travel are most probably the thing that stays with you. So, as an example, it wasn't in Africa, but we were in India for 3 months, and we went to Jodhpur. I'm a fan of deserts, and that's on the edge of the desert at Jaisalmer. And Jaisalmer, by the desert. And we did a walking tour. We always do a walking tour when we get somewhere. And talking to the guide, he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm a musician." And he's like, "Oh, my grandfather was a musician to the Maharaja, and he'd love to meet you. Will you come?" He said, "I'll message him. Will you come for tea?" So after our tour was over, we went to this tiny little house and back streets, sat in this old guy's bedroom come room with tea, and he got out his little tiny piano and sang and played, and that was just kind of like this very surreal, weird situation. And earlier in the day, we'd visited a women's charity that rescue women because of the culture in India. It's so difficult for women. And I'd bought a little tiny elephant that had been made there, because we travel with a rucksack, so we can't buy things. It's got to be really light. And so I had that in my pocket, so that's all I could give him. And I was like, oh, there's a little gift. And he held my hand, and we just talked about music, and it was really sweet. Unless you move out of your environment and do things like that, you never have those moments. And I could list so many of places where we've been and met people and had those little tiny intimate moments that you would never experience. And nothing, you can't buy that, can you?
It's literally, you can't buy that. It's not something that you're ever going to be able to, and you're not going to be able to communicate that to somebody else unless they step out of their usual lives and they experience it for themselves, because they could have the same encounter but could have completely different emotions to it. And that's extremely powerful. That's such a beautiful thing to experience. Well done.
And I think the other thing is, the more we travel, the more we realize that everybody that we meet, you want your kids to be healthy, you want a roof over your head, you want food in your belly, and you really don't care about borders and boundaries and anything else. Just people want a quiet life. It's just
a quiet, happy life. And I think that's the one thing that also, resonates with me after having gone on my first tour, etc., is that you just see how happy everybody is with so little. And they've got their usual life. They're just going on with their everyday lives. I'm sure you saw it with the Himba tribe. They may face their own challenges, but they share just so much of happiness.
And also the Runda village tour, where the people there are, and people live in such terrible circumstances. And I think things like you're aware of the damage caused by climate change and how, we complain that it's a bit hot or it's a bit rain. I'm sure that's not true in other places of the earth where they've got fires and droughts, but in the places that we visited, it's life or death in that people aren't having crops. Their lives are changing. They're having to rapidly reassess. It's a wide awakening to how we need to look after the earth and our world. And
was that sort of like part of the inspiration for you starting your blog? Because you actually haven't touched on that as to why, you started your blog and how that's been going for you.
No, I started my very first blog when I walked my first Camino, because there wasn't smartphones. It wasn't so easy to stay in touch. I went data plans and everything. And I had an old blogger blog, and it was just a way of being able to every day or every couple of days write something, put some pictures up, and then my family and friends could go and have a look and see how things were going. So there was nothing more than that, but it had a lot of people read it. And then I did my second walk, was 1,000 kilometers from Seville to Santiago, and people said, will you do your blog again? And so I got a little WordPress blog, and it became a little bit more. And I really enjoyed the process of thinking about that, what I did that day. What did we see? What was I thinking? And it progressed into genuinely just my thoughts as I walked, but also about the landscape, about the history, about the things that we were seeing. And also I really loved taking the photos. So it grew from there. And pre-COVID, and maybe had about 100,000 people a year had viewed the blog. And it was just a crazy, this is my thoughts, no useful information in it. And I also read blogs when we started traveling, because I find them really useful. If somebody's got their own personal insights, you don't necessarily share their viewpoint, but they're still useful. But very few were written by older people in an older voice. And so they were aimed at the ziplining 20 pluses who wanted to find partying or bunk beds and that kind of thing. And so I thought, well, I should change my blog and turn it into something that is a voice for older people. And then I thought, well, I need to include the Camino as well, because that's half of who I am. And so it became the travel that we do as older people, and maybe inspire people to think, you can do this. It's absolutely easy to go. It really, really is. You don't need to spend thousands to see the world. And also on the Camino, just there's a lot of bad information out there. So I thought, well, if I can write about that in my voice, then maybe it will also encourage people to think, if I can do this, then you could definitely do this.
Oh, that is so lovely. I mean, you're definitely speaking my language when it comes to, letting people understand that, there's going to be lots of myths about a place, lots of stories that you're going to hear from somebody else. We had a webinar the other day with somebody who said there were so many people who told me so many things about different countries, but they had never actually been there. They're basing it off of what they've heard in the news or what they've heard on social media. And that's part of the problem that we have, as individuals now, is that we have so much of information at our fingertips. What's the right source?
Right.
And part of, what we're trying to do here at African Overland Tours is that someone like you're the source. You have had the experience, you've gone out and you've done it, and you've also created a platform for older people who may be scared to branch out. And now you're doing it. It may be in the form of writing, it may be in the form of your social media, but at the end of the day, you're showing people that it's okay to step out of the norm. And that is something so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't be afraid to do it. And your tour, the one that we did, you don't have to do the whole thing. You can get off in Namibia if you want, or you can just go to Zimbabwe, Victoria Falls, and Chobe. You can do little things. But we found that once you've bought that flight, you might as well get the absolute most out of that flight, because the flight is the most expensive part of your journey.
Yeah. Well, Colleen, it's been such a pleasure chatting to you. I think that this has been so insightful, so inspirational, and I hope that whoever watches this going forward is going to say, I'm booking my flight tomorrow, I'm going. But before you book a flight, please make sure that you've got other plans ahead of you. We don't want you stranded somewhere. But, just be authentically yourself the way that you have been all your life, and it will do you good.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you. But yeah, I hope people do. If you're thinking about going, don't worry about the tent. Book the one with the camp bed, though.
Tips. Very good and useful tips. Well, thank you again, Colleen. To everybody who's participated in this webinar, thank you so much. The recording will be available shortly on YouTube. I've just got some lovely thank you messages from my team. They love watching us. Ingrid says, oh, actually, I missed this one. Ingrid said, I'm envious that Colleen could keep her luggage weight to 9 kgs. Packing dreams.
7 kgs.
7 kgs. Wow. I would never be able to do that.
The trick is that you have to go shopping with a pair of kitchen scales and weigh every item. I have a spreadsheet and I record the weight of the things I take, because when I'm hiking, it has to go in my backpack, so it's on my back.
On your back. Yeah. That's smart.
And now we don't like checking luggage. So it has to be carry-on size. But we have just booked a flight for Oman, and the carry-on luggage is 5 kilos. So we're going to have to check, which is just...
Let me know how that one goes. If you can make that work, I think that you deserve to be in the Guinness World Book of Records.
No, that's not going to work. We can't get down to that. And also only one bag, because I bought a camera just for the Africa trip, because I thought my phone was not going to cut it. That was such a good investment. But that's heavy. So, but yeah, definitely keep the weight down, because you'll regret it every day having to lift that bag up and down. And you don't need it. You'll wear the same 3 t-shirts for the whole trip.
That's true. You basically just maybe need a change of underwear here and there.
You can wash it every night in the sink.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, again, thank you so much. Celia says, thank you, Colleen. It's been great listening to you. Jess says, what an epic webinar. Thank you so much. Well done. And Ingrid, thank you. Love it so much. Love it so much listening to you. So thank you, Colleen. You've been amazing. And hopefully we can do this again. Chatting with you is amazing.
After our next trip.
After our next trip. Yes, I'm sure to be getting you on. You and Ingrid are going to be working on it. She's finding you some options right now. And your next trip is going to be our next webinar. Cool. Ingrid, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.